I want that dick fillet, baby.
Anyways, moving right to the topic. Anyone interested in Iraqi wedding soup? And this is a scary story, my friends.
Brutal.
I know GW shared this one with me, and he was like, "Is this too brutal to put on the show?" And I was like, "No, Pear will have a comment or two about kitchen safety and how you need to be careful." But yeah, a chef dies after falling into a boiling vat of soup in freak accident. Which is your first warning. Like, if you're boiling the soup, you're cooking it too hard. I'm just going to put that out there.
Well, what I wonder is, as you're doing this, are you literally saying, boil, and shove like, how are you boiling a soup large enough for it to be a cauldron in which you can literally become this? This is like something like a Grimm's Brother tale or something like that.
Jake said chick no gay.
I like that, Jake. Yeah, little chick no gay.
Jason saying only you, Colin. What the fuck about the dick fillet? You know, I'm for it. I'm cool.
No.
But they say an Iraqi chef tragically died last week after falling into a vat of soup, which left him severely scalded across large swaths of his body. The horrific accident occurred on June 15th while Isla Ismail. Again, I suck at pronunciation. I'm sorry if he didn't make it. So if the guy's family is watching the show, I apologize.
I apologize.
Let me just apologize for any joke going forward that we will do about this topic.
The sad part is he was 25. They say while stirring the soup, the 25-year-old father of three reportedly slipped and fell into the pot before tumbling to the floor, which is immediately how I knew this wasn't a story about America, because there's no millennials that are 25 that have three children. They either have 8 or they're never having any.
And then I'm making soup.
The cook was immediately rushed to a local hospital where medics spent several days trying to save his life. However, Issa died 5 days later after succumbing to third-degree burns all over 70% of his body. The chef's alarming death sent shockwaves across Iraqi media, with many mourners attributing the incident to lax safety standards inside the nation's restaurants and kitchens. Gulf News reported that the pot of soup was on the floor when the freak workplace accident occurred. Issa has been working as a cook for around 8 years prior to the tragedy, which means he started when he was 17. That checks out. The Sun reported the deceased cooked food at wedding parties, mourning boards, and various ceremonies. And for 2 years, this is the crazy part here. And for 2 years, he's been working in 2 party halls for 25,000 diners per day. One of the late chef's relatives, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, told Ruda Media Network as reported in Middle East in 24.
Last credit they never put on it was he actually cooked for a funeral as well. He was doing that.
Well, what I really want to know is, do they serve the soup afterwards?
It did seem like a perfectly good waste of food.
This is a tragedy now until Disney picks up this film, right, and pays this family millions. It's going to be a guy who, in the film, he's going to be much older, right? He's not going to be 25 years old. He's going to be like an 80-something-year-old man making the thing. He makes the soup, but here's the interesting thing. When he hits the soup, he becomes a frog. And once he's a frog, yeah, well, no, he lives because it's magic soup, right? So he becomes a frog, and then he hops along. Boom! I mean, this is a film franchise right here, and Disney's going to make millions off of this. So, all's well that ends well.
Jason corrects me. He says, no, it was about the chef falling in the soup, and I've lost track so far. Nick said, was he a little person? I don't think I'm allowed to say that. Or was it soup for an army? It sounds like it was soup for an army, Nick.
Yeah.
Jason almost comments, beefy, which I would correct. No, it's more like, human-y. And Jake's kitchen boy, he said, hope he tasted it for seasoning on the way down.
Well, my one thought was that it needed more salt, so that's why he jumped in.
I want to admit that it's kind of like a fantasy of mine. I've always wanted a giant bowl of gravy that I could swim in.
Dude, I worked in a dining hall at a college, and I got to use one of those giant vats to make things in, and it was the perfect size for a one-person hot tub.
I don't even want to know where this story goes, but GW no longer has that job at said university. And I took a bath in the gravy, and it was fantastic.
I've never smelled so good.
I want to eat myself.
But I didn't think this was even that crazy, considering even here in America, we've got ovens and stuff that you can walk into, right? Like we have walk-in ovens for massive cracker production and things like that. And it doesn't seem like a pot of soup that you can fall in is that crazy. Parrot, what'd you think about this one?
It's a little hard to comprehend the falling in.
Well, it was only 70%, so I assume he was like leaning over and he went like kind of in. I agree. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough one to comprehend quite the physics of falling into a vat.
My first mental image when GW sent me the article and it was like, after falling into a boiling vat of soup, all I could think was about, and I don't know if you guys ever had to read this book in high school or in the past, but The Jungle.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it was all about like how awful meat production was back in like the 1910s or 20s. And that they talked about like giant grinders that people could fall in and stuff. And that was the first thing I thought of was like, maybe he worked at like a soup production facility. But then I was like, they said it was a pot. You know what I mean? Which means it has to be small enough that at least like two people can move it, which means it wasn't that big a vat of soup.
Well, and part of the problem was it was a New York Post story and it showed a bowl with a spoon in it.
Jake says Hickory swimming in gravy is a hilarious image. I agree, but also a delicious one that I would love to shoot for a calendar at some point.
I was going to say that's November right there. That warms me up just thinking about
it. Jason said, I know someone who took a leak into a batch of pasta. Brutal.
I know someone who took a leak in a batch of clam chowder.
Was his name Tyler?
No.
Okay.
I probably paid for one of those dishes, so I appreciate that, guys. That's really great.
Dude, the horror stories that we could go into about food prep.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah, I prefer not to because it's gross and I don't like to think about it. It bums me out.
Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that around Halloween. Maybe for this year's Halloween show, we'll just do food horrors.
Yeah, and maybe when you don't have a guest on that's a food production manager. I'm sitting here silent, like, can we get away from this subject, please? Food safety.
There's a call from your attorney, like, I'm sorry. Yeah, we got to get away from this. All right.
Did you hear my phone beat?
Sorry, Pear.
Yeah. No, sorry to Pear's lawyer. We didn't mean to. But yeah, we'll move right into the next one at the behest. Jason said the horror stories I could tell, but that's for next episode, Jason. We'll get